So this has been a poorly kept secret in hockey circles. The Bruins have easily had one of the worst prospect pools in the NHL for the better part of the past decade. It's only within the past 2 years following the drafting of Dean Letourneau, James Higgins, and Vasek Lamar, as well as the trading for Will Zellers, that they've been able to climb up out of the bottom of the barrel in some capacity. But I think it's important to ask why that's been the case. Let's be real, a lot of it is genuinely the work of Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. But when have we ever been satisfied by such simple answers? So I thought we should go through the past decade or so of Bruins prospect development and really ask ourselves why they've never been able to adequately fill up the prospect pool. But before we get into this, as per usual, this video was made 100% by me without the use of any artificial intelligence. I write, record, edit, and produce everything here myself. This is purely a one-person operation. So if you want to uplift independent sports content on the platform, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment down below. Now it's time to rip into... what can really be said about the Bruins draft strategy as of late? They don't really have one, to be quite honest. And that's for a very understandable, albeit frustrating reason. Up until 2023, the Bruins were firmly in win-now mode. They had thrown out a lot of draft capital over the years for players ranging from long-term options like Charlie Coyle and Hampus Lindholm, to rentals like Garnet Hathaway, Dmitry Orlov, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Rick Nash, all for the sake of trying to win one last cup with the core of Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and David Krejci. And ultimately, the team reaped what they had sown. They said fuck them picks repeatedly and pushed all their chips to the middle, bracing themselves for that ace of spades. They want that royal flush. The river runs a 4, and Florida takes it on a straight. Over the course of Sweeney's tenure, the Bruins have traded away 4 first-round picks and 5 picks that were in the top 50. The average position of their first pick in that time frame is 35th overall, not even in the first round. Granted, this is skewed pretty harshly with the Bruins not selecting until the 3rd round in 2023, but if you want to start somewhere for why the Bruins drafting has not been up to par, the fact that they're not drafting enough in the earlier rounds is a really good place to start. Quality is usually preferable over quantity, as 2015 would have us understand intimately, but that doesn't mean quantity is completely irrelevant. And speaking of the quality of those picks, the picture comes more into focus when you see the players selected, and I believe there to be no better example than, of all pieces, one of the 2 7th round picks from the 2023 draft, Christian Kostadinski. All you really need to know about him is that he was 6'6", 230 as an 18-year-old whose main appeal was being a complete bulldozer. So he fits the size and physicality mold that is quintessential Bruins hockey. It doesn't matter that Adam McQuaid had to teach him how to stop and start skating at development camp one year. He's big, strong, and physical. But there was another important piece in the decision to draft him. He committed to Boston College. Now, I get it. Boston College is a very prestigious hockey school. As what is essentially the flagship school of Hockey East, quite possibly the most competitive NCAA D1 hockey subdivision, some of the best active NHL players are BC alum. From that point alone, the front office's affinity for the school makes sense. But let's be real. The main reason why the Bruins love picking from BC is they just need to switch over from Green Line B to Green Line D or E anywhere from Kenmore to Government Center. Now, in fairness, they love looking at players from other Hockey East schools as well. Charlie McAvoy from Boston University, Chris Pelosi from Quinnipiac, yes I know Quinnipiac is ECAC, but it's Connecticut, damn it, and that's good enough, and Don Schmelz from UMass Amherst. But BC last season had 6 players the Bruins had the rights to. James Higgins, Will Moore, Dean Letourneau, Christian Kostadinski, Oscar Jelvik, and Andre Gassot. The problem with that is you're never drafting exclusively out of college, and even when you are, you're not drafting exclusively out of Hockey East. It's at the point where looks beyond Alston and Brighton need to be considered. I won't deny, it's a cozy area, even though Twin Donuts closing down still hurts like a bitch. But as much as I hate to agree with anything Mike Felger has to say...
The local thing, of course, they took the local kid. I'm sick to death up to here with the local kids.
It's time to look at other junior leagues for talent. Say, for instance, the CHL. You want to know the last player in the top 50 the Bruins had in any of the 3 major Canadian junior leagues? Fabien Lysell, who they drafted from Luleå to spend a singular year with Vancouver in the WHL, and then have kept him in the AHL for the longest times for reasons that I'll get it back to later. But the last honest-to-goodness time the Bruins front office used a top 50 draft pick on a player in any of the CHL leagues was Zach Senyshyn in 2015, who they took out of Sioux in the OHL. Which brings me to another big thing about the Bruins drafting. Their tendency to draft projects. It takes time for anyone to get up to pace in the NHL. In general, unless you're a Macklin Celebrini, a Matthew Schaefer, or a Connor Bedard level prospect, there's usually a timeline of about 2 to 3 years for your prospects to get up to speed enough to where you feel comfortable putting them on NHL ice. But Senyshyn was the pivot point here, because he was the start of Sweeney's obsession with the project. Unable to assert himself in Sault Ste. Marie, he never got enough ice time to properly showcase whatever talents he had refined, and with mediocre play in transition, many scouts had relegated him to the back of the class, not to be taken until the late first round. Sweeney took the gamble on him at 15, passing up on all the names I'm sure you've grown well accustomed to staring at on the Wikipedia page since that pick was made. But this is a key issue of the front office. It happened in 2019 when they took Johnny Beecher at the end of the first round, a player whose talents and skills indicated you would probably take him in the mid-second. It happened with Fabian Lysell in 2021, a player who was absolutely first-round caliber, but likely wouldn't be conditioned for the show for a few years. Heck, it happened with Dean Letourneau, a player I love watching and am certain he'll be a promising look at center in 2027 and 2028. But everything indicated, with the scoring clip he had prior to the draft and the competition he was up against, that he would probably be an early to mid-second rounder. And given the small moves the front office has made with the Oliver Wahlstrom experiment and the Lucas Reichel experiment, and however many experiments you want to count, it's pretty clear that the front office finds the thrill in digging through the scrap heap. And maybe I'd be down to understand if they were able to forge what they've found into reliable weapons. However, their metalworkers are... A lot of criticism can be levied towards the Bruins development team, but I don't know if too many people understand why they deserve their bad reputation. It's not simply because of the bad hit rate on prospects. We all bite into a sandwich that has a Jack Studnicka from time to time. Get over it. It's the model they try to chase, and that model is making every single forward into Patrice Bergeron. Now, on the surface, this sounds extraordinary. Having an idea of what you want your prospects to look like on the ice is smart, and for that model to be one of the most effective three-zone players the game has ever seen, with the leadership qualities to back it up, why would you want that to be any different? Well, let me ask you something. How beneficial would it have been to David Pastrnak to keep him sequestered in the AHL until he was an adequate penalty killer on top of everything he already is? He already has enough plates to spin, he doesn't need any more. And I can tell you now, it would have been absolutely pointless. The issue with chasing a specific model is you're going to inevitably have players that don't fit that model. And quite possibly the biggest example of such is Fabian Lysell. Now, is his issue a little more complex? Yes. There's been talks of him apparently having a rather lackadaisical nature in Providence, taking shifts off and having an attitude of being too good for the minors. And I have a theory about that, and that's maybe he's a bit too good for the minors at this point in his career. But there's this insistence from many that he needs to give a crap in the defensive zone for him to be at all ready for the NHL. I can tell you right now, after having watched almost every available Fabian Lysell highlight, that in the show, he's rarely ever going to start a shift in the defensive zone, nor should he, because that's not his role. Lysell's best capabilities are his blistering speed and his play and shot creation. Stalling him out because you don't like how close to the blue line he plays while on defense is dumb. And this happens with a lot of prospects, which is why the pool seems to be filled with centers, and why Cooper Simpson and Will Zellers are the only two winger prospects that have been at all intriguing since Lysell, who only really had DeBrusque before him. It's not necessarily the model they're chasing. I wish every single NHL player could be like Bergeron, but not everyone is. You have your 200-foot guys, your defensive defensemen, your speed demons, your snipers, your penalty killers. NHL players are a lot like the classes in Team Fortress 2, and the Bruins front office has basically put a sign out on the front of TD Garden and Warrior Ice Arena saying soldiers only. But another major component of this rarely gets talked about. It's time to talk about minor league hockey. The Providence Bruins are a great team. Consistently one of the best teams in the Eastern Division, despite not having won a Calder Cup since 1999. And they are as good as they are because the team is built around AHL success, which is something a lot of hockey fans don't seem to fully understand. The AHL, much as it acts as a minor and developmental league for the NHL, still has to function as its own league with its own competition. Think about it. Head coaches and general managers of AHL teams usually see success as winning the Calder Cup. Player development is usually seen as ancillary to that end goal. If a star player manages to graduate out of the A and becomes a quality NHL starter, that's great. But the main goal was, is, and forever will be winning the Calder Cup. And I'd be willing to credit Ryan Mujinel for having that mindset, if not for one tiny thing. They've not made it past the first round at all since he became head coach of Providence. And that includes this year, where Providence decided to imitate their big brother from a few years back, put up one of the greatest regular seasons in AHL history with a 54-16-0-2 record for 110 points, and lose 3-1 to a Springfield Thunderbirds squad who had 38 fewer points than Providence in the regular season. And this would maybe be a bit forgivable if this were a Jim Montgomery thing and this was his first season. Mujinel has been the head coach since 2021. And judging by the topic of this video, you already know that he's been bad at getting the up-and-coming talent to fledge. The only successful development he's had is that of Mason Lohrei. In 5 years. Under his care, Fabian Lysell has been ruined. Matt Poitras has been ruined. Georgi Merkulov has been ruined. John Farinacci has been ruined. Now, some might say that Jonathan Aspero is another success he's had, given how Aspero played this year in Boston. There's 2 major caveats to that, however. First of all, that now makes it 2 successes that Mujinel has had in the past 5 years. Way to level up there, guy! And second, let's be completely honest with ourselves. Aspero is a mediocre defenseman who only got the recognition he did because without him, we'd legitimately have nobody on the left side beyond Hampus Lindholm, who took too many stupid penalties throughout the season, and Nikita Zadorov, who took too many stupid penalties throughout the season. No, I don't necessarily count Mason Lohrei there because Marco Sturm made a very smart move to pivot him to the right side of the defense. Aspero is a plug, and little more than that. Let's not gas him up to be this insane underrated god at left defense. When your head coach in your developmental league can neither win in that league nor develop talent, I think the question really needs to be asked of why he should be kept around. I'm not sure how much Vancouver has hitched their cart to Kevin Dean as an assistant head coach, but maybe give him a call again, since the 1 year you had him was the last time Providence had made it to the 3rd round of the playoffs a decade ago. And with this in mind, it's understandable why the college ranks have had Sweeney's ear at almost all times. If this was the absolute state of the development team, I would rather my prospects go to college for a few years and develop there, only using 4 to 6 games in the AHL as the means to get fully up to speed. The problem is that I then have control over the development team and can fire someone that isn't doing their job well enough to justify keeping them around. So yeah, a lot of the frustration here lands on Sweeney and Neely again. Big shocker. They don't draft often enough to get the big talent they need. Whatever big talent they do get is almost immediately ruined by chasing the model of someone whose skills aren't transferable from player to player, and they've kept around a lame duck head coach at their top farm team for far too long for it to be acceptable. With all this in mind, I have the highest hopes for the current batch of prospects on their way with the team, because they've done most of their development in college. Hagens, Boston College. Moore, Boston College. Letourneau, Boston College. Zellers, UND. Blanar, UMass Amherst. Pelosi, Quinnipiac. The point is that it's reasonable to be skeptical of Bruins prospect development. Sweeney and Neely absolutely have their work cut out for them this summer. A new batch of prospects are getting dumped into the pool. Maybe it's time to change out the filter. Hey, did you like that video? I bet you did because you got to the end of it. We're trying to make this a community to talk about the wonderful game of hockey. So if you like this video, why not scan the QR code next to me to join the official channel Discord? I know the NHL season is over, but we're going to be doing watch-alongs when games start back up in 2026 and 2027. We're going to be doing game nights. We're going to have a fun time here in the den. So give it a scan or click the link in the description below. And if you extra want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. For a little more than a Costco hot dog a month, you'll get access to the members only section of the Discord, prime real estate in my end slates, and every video essay one day early. Till next time, this is Bex from Into the Den, signing off.